On the latest developments in the Israel-Palestine, Israel-Hamas/Gaza war as of October 2025. Because the situation is evolving rapidly, some details may shift, but this aims to be a comprehensive snapshot of where things stand, the key dynamics, and what to watch moving forward. Introduction: The conflict between Israel and Hamas entered a new phase in October 2025 when the two parties agreed to a ceasefire after nearly 2 years of intense hostilities. What followed has been a delicate and fragile process of implementation, balancing the demands of justice, security, reconstruction, diplomacy, and humanitarian recovery. This update tracks how the truce is being implemented, how each side is repositioning, the human cost and recovery efforts, the broader regional dynamics, and the unresolved challenges ahead. Origins and context. A brief recap to understand the present. It helps to remember how we got here. The war was triggered on October 7, 2023, when Hamas militants launched a large-scale attack into southern Israel, killing 200 people and taking 250 hostages. Israel responded with an extensive military campaign targeting Gaza. Over the subsequent months, the conflict escalated into massive airstrikes, artillery shelling, and ground incursions in Gaza, with devastating human and infrastructural tolls. Ceasefire efforts were attempted before, e.g., temporary pauses and mediation rounds, but none held permanently. In March 2025, a previous ceasefire collapsed after a surprise Israeli attack on Gaza, restarting full-scale hostilities. Throughout, there has also been an Israeli military presence and operations in the West Bank, Operation Iron Wall, targeting militant infrastructure, especially in areas like Jenin and Tulkarm, which has further inflamed tensions. By late 2025, both sides were exhausted, international pressure was mounting, and a mediated proposal began to gain traction: the ceasefire deal, terms, promises, and immediate moves. Ratification and start of truce. On October 9, 2025, Israel's cabinet approved a U.S.-brokered ceasefire plan. The agreement included a phased truce, the partial withdrawal of Israeli troops, and a hostage-prisoner exchange mechanism. Israeli forces began pulling back to positions agreed upon by both sides. Within 72 hours of the ceasefire taking effect, Hamas was to release 20 living Israeli hostages. Israel, in turn, would free some 1,950 Palestinian prisoners, including 250 long-term prisoners and 1,700 others arrested during the war. A civilian humanitarian effort was to be bolstered. Israel pledged to allow up to 600 aid trucks per day into Gaza. The U.S. established a Civil Military Coordination Center, CMCC, in Israel to help monitor and assist with stabilization and humanitarian flows, though U.S. troops were not to enter Gaza, in support roles. 200 American personnel were to staff it. Israel also began transferring Palestinian prisoners to sites where they could be released under the terms of the agreement. Early implementation and human movement with truce lines drawn and the agreement activated. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians, especially from southern Gaza and central areas, began returning northward, including to Gaza City, often walking through rubble. The landscape left behind is one of destruction. 90% of Gaza's housing and infrastructure was heavily damaged or destroyed. Returning residents frequently found only rubble where homes once stood, but expressed a sense of relief and longing to return home in any form. As hostages and prisoners were prepared for exchange, Israel's prison authorities mobilized staff during overnight operations to ready detainees for release. Political messaging and tensions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu framed the ceasefire as a strategic victory. He reiterated Israel's goal of disarming Hamas and warned that hostilities could resume if demands were not met. Hamas, for its part, accepted the deal but rejected the notion of demilitarization or full disarmament in Gaza. It insisted on retention of weapon capabilities and governance autonomy in the territory. The war, diplomats say, is not fully over. Many critical issues, governance, reconstruction, international oversight, border control, remain unresolved. Some international observers caution that the ceasefire is fragile. Past pauses have unraveled when key deadlines or terms were violated or withheld. Humanitarian crisis and reconstruction, death toll and injuries. The war has inflicted immense human cost. Gazan health authorities, operated under Hamas, estimate over 67,000 Palestinians killed, with many more injured. Many bodies remain under rubble, and the full figure may yet rise. Beyond death, there are hundreds of thousands injured, with many suffering lasting disabilities, trauma, and mental health consequences. In Gaza, water, electricity, health systems, sewage, roads, and communication networks are largely destroyed or non-functional in many parts. Displacement and return. The vast majority of Gaza's population, at various stages, was internally displaced during the conflict. Many had to flee southward or to shelters. The ceasefire has allowed many to start returning northward, but the returns are dangerous and uncertain. Unexploded ordnance, structural collapse, hygiene hazards, and a lack of basic services pose grave risks. Relief and reconstruction groups are scrambling to assess needs and begin repair work. Even basic tasks such as clearing rubble, restoring clean water, rebuilding medical facilities, and re-establishing supply chains, aid, access, and constraints. Israel committed to allowing up to 600 aid trucks per day into Gaza under the agreement. However, NGOs and relief agencies argue that 600 trucks per day is far below what is needed given the scale of devastation and the immediate need for food, medicine, shelter, water, and sanitation. Logistical bottlenecks, security concerns, damaged roads, coordination gaps, and border/entry issues limit how fast humanitarian flows can ramp up. The reopening of border crossings, especially via Egypt, is a key condition of the agreement and a critical factor for relief delivery. Many aid workers and organizations operate under constraints of safety, resource scarcity, and political oversight. Wider regional and international dynamics. Lebanon/Hezbollah front. Immediately following the ceasefire and truce, Israel launched airstrikes in southern Lebanon, targeting infrastructure linked to Hezbollah rebuilding efforts. One such strike in the village of Msela killed one person and wounded several. Since the 2023-2024 Israel-Hezbollah war, near-daily skirmishes and strikes have continued. The ceasefire with Gaza does not automatically translate to calm on Israel's northern border. UN and human rights officials have warned of increased civilian casualties in Lebanon even after the primary ceasefire in Gaza. U.S. and diplomatic involvement. The United States played a central role in crafting and mediating the ceasefire plan. President Donald Trump, in particular, has sought credit for it. U.S. diplomatic and logistical support, via the CMCC, is expected to be crucial in ensuring compliance and humanitarian coordination. Some U.S. troops have been deployed, in Israel, not Gaza, to assist truce monitoring. Meanwhile, regional actors, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and others, remain mediators and guarantors of the ceasefire deal. Globally, the conflict has triggered diplomatic pressure, UN resolutions, protests, and calls for accountability or investigations of war crimes. Political stakes in Israel and Palestine. For Netanyahu, the ceasefire and how negotiating leverage is used carry significant political weight, especially ahead of elections. He aims to portray strength and security gains. On the Palestinian side, internal divisions, between Hamas, Palestinian Authority, PA, and other factions, complicate governance, legitimacy, and reconstruction. The role of the PA in Gaza, or an eventual reintegration of Gaza under PA oversight, is a disputed question. Hamas rejects full disarmament, and the timing, phases, and verification of any weapon surrender involve heavier diplomatic dispute, challenges, fault lines and points of fragility. Even with the ceasefire in place, many risks, unknowns, and tensions remain. Trust and verification. The truce depends heavily on both sides adhering strictly. Any breach could reignite fighting quickly. Verification mechanisms, oversight, and enforcement will be crucial, and contentious. Who monitors, with what power, and under whose sovereignty? Hamas has insisted demilitarization is unacceptable for now, steps around that are deferred to future phases. Hostage and prisoner exchanges. The exchange is phased. The timing and sequencing are delicate. Delays or refusal from either side could derail broader trust. Notably, Marwan Barghouti, a major Palestinian leader and symbol, is not included in the released prisoner list, per One reporting. Some high-profile or politically sensitive prisoners may become bargaining chips or flashpoints. Reconstruction, governance and infrastructure. Rebuilding Gaza will cost billions. Who pays? Who oversees? Who leads the reconstruction? Local authorities, international agencies, Israel, or a new entity? Infrastructure devastation is near total in many zones: housing, schools, hospitals, roads, water systems, electricity, sanitation. Basic services must be restored quickly to avoid famine, disease, and further displacement. Security and residual militancy. Even with a truce, residual militant capabilities and cells may persist, resisting disarmament or reorganization. Israeli security concerns remain of rearming or new infiltration. Border control, buffer zones, or demilitarized areas may be proposed, but